Hey guys, today this video is going to be all about my entire airplane collection that I currently have right now. And now what you see on the table is not my entire collection. I'll be doing in segments. There will be timestamps and links in the description to certain sections of the video with certain genres of aircraft. But right now I'm going to start off with the first genre, which is all my sort of decent, not good looking ones of World War II. So if we start off with the left, we have this Airfix 172nd scale Bristol Blenheim. This one was interesting as the first Blenheim I had built, and I'm quite happy with how the bottom turned out. This was the first time I applied a wash, and I tried to make it look like it'd been shot up. The reason it's here is just it uses the Humbrol 29 and Humbrol 30 scheme, which is not that good. It doesn't look good. It's the wrong color. And then moving on, it's this Airfix 172nd scale HE-111. I had first built this one from the Battle of Britain gift set, and it's old and it's not very good. It was only the fourth plane I had ever brush painted before, but at the time I think it was really good. And out of this entire collection of airplanes, I think it's one of the best. Coming down, we have this Airfix Hawker Hurricane from the same gift set as the HE-111. This was the second plane I had ever brush painted, and again the quality is pretty low, but at the time it was pretty good. I liked this one for some time. Moving on, we have this Academy 172nd scale Spitfire Mark 14, which is just broken. Look at the propeller. You'd have to re-glue that one on. This one's really ugly. I had first experiment on this with trying a wash, but it was on a matte varnish, and as most of you know, that doesn't work. And I had also tried painting invasion stripes on it. Those didn't turn out very well either. And it's painted in pink to be the photo reconnaissance version, but those of you that know photo reconnaissance Spitfires know this is the wrong mark. Because I just bought the kit and just painted it pink and didn't look at the correct mark, and yeah, I might throw that one out. Next one is this Revell 172nd scale Corsair. This one had originally been painted in an RAF scheme, but I didn't like it. It looked bad, so I stripped the paint and gave it a repaint in a Pacific Theater Fleet Air Arm scheme. Right now it's missing the propeller. That had snapped off before I made this video. Right here, this is actually one of my favorites, and it's this Airfix Ferry Battle in Belgian markings. And this was when I first started experimenting with different colors of green for the RAF scheme. And this one currently uses Humbrol 116. And I really liked how this aircraft turned out. I eventually used a Humbrol 163 on my other aircraft, but I did like the colors. And also, this was the only time that I got paint chipping effects done really well. So I was quite pleased with this one. I might re-glue a propeller on it later in the future. Moving back, here is Revell, the really old Revell kit of the Brewster Buffalo and Finnish markings. The camouflage is fictional, and there is no pilot, and it's a gear up because it didn't come with the parts to gear down. It was a bagged kit. It didn't have any box art or anything that was clipped to the bag. It just came unmarked, but it had the Finnish decals, which I really wanted to have in my collection. But as you can see on the bottom, that bottom one broke, that one broke, that one broke. And the only ones on the top, those are the only ones that stayed intact. Interesting one to my collection, but I don't know, it didn't turn out too well. Moving on, we have this Airfix 176th scale Gloucester Gladiator. Now, when I had built this, I really liked the Gloucester Gladiator and the RAF Battle of Britain scheme. And as you can see, it just doesn't look good. The fishing line's all wacky. The canopy is terrible. Just get that to focus. The masking tape was awful. It was atrocious. I was still using normal masking, like blue tape, And then on the wings, it doesn't have the right roundel type, and it just, and plus a wheel broke. Not a good airplane. Moving on, we have this another Brewster Buffalo. Now the reason it looks like this is I was originally going to paint this up in an RAF scheme from the Pacific and make it look like it had crashed. Never got around to doing it, and right now it's just sitting there unpainted in this silver color, looking terrible. Here we have the biggest aircraft that I had made up until I started making the B-17. You can check that video out right here in the corner of the screen. But this is the Dam Busters version, flown by Guy Gibson. This is still pretty early, so I painted that on the side of the aircraft. Not very historically accurate, and it's all funky, and the paint job isn't that good. But at the time, it was my best airplane, so I was pretty proud of it. Back here we have this Yugoslavian Spitfire Mark 9. Now, for those of you history buffs, you should know that Yugoslavia only used Mark 5s, but I didn't do enough historical research, and I was like, oh look, a Mark 9, I'm just going to buy that painted in Yugoslavian Air Force colors. So I did. It's missing the canopy, and it's not that good. I might sand down the paint, try to find a new Mark 9 canopy, and give this an RAF scheme. Who knows? Project for another day. Moving back here, this is actually one of my favorite in my collection. This is a Airfix 1/72 scale Focke-Wulf 190. I believe this is the D version. And I had originally abandoned this kit and just left it in disrepair because one of those circular, well, not circular, one of the little protrusions on the engine had snapped off, and I just left it there sitting unpainted, unassembled for a really long time. So just a couple weeks ago I got to painting it, and it's got this really wild snow winter scheme. The decals didn't turn out the best, but personally I think it looks really cool, and I sort of like this one. Moving to the front, we have the Photo Reconnaissance 1/6 scale Airfix Spitfire. This is in the two-tone scheme, and as you'll note, it has the incorrect fin flash and the incorrect roundels. I just did that because I didn't like the original scheme. The paint was coming off, and so I just re-decaled it so I could have something to compare it to the new Spitfire that I'm working on, the new Photo Reconnaissance one that you may have seen in other updates. Right beside that is this Airfix Mark 1 Spitfire. Yeah, not much to say about it. Given a repaint. It's painted a Home Roll 163 for the green, that's why it shines. Hasn't been varnished, but I wanted a Mark 1 in my collection, and I think it looks pretty decent. Right behind that is another Airfix Hawker Hurricane. This one in an Irish Air Force scheme. These decals are actually from the Gloucester Gladiator set, from that kit. And as you can see, the decals don't fit on the wings. They look pretty ugly. I might give this one a repaint too in an RAF scheme. Over here we have a Revell 1/72 scale P-47 in French markings. You can, as you note, one of the guns has snapped on the wings, and the camo wasn't very good on this one. You can see the gray is just wasn't applied very well, and the fin flash is quite terrible. See, the decals were actually taken off the Spitfire kit, this Spitfire kit, and so the fin flash didn't match, and that's why it looks so terrible. But it does look pretty interesting in the collection, so as long as you don't look at it up close, it looks pretty good. Right here we have a Wildcat in an RAF scheme. Now, as you know, this scheme is not historically accurate at all. This Wildcats never wore a Battle of Britain camouflage. But at the time I made this, real long time ago, I didn't know. I just liked the colors, so I painted it that color. Moving here, this originally was one of my favorite kits. This is the old Revell 1/72 scale PZL 11C. But in an accident, the leg strut snapped, and now it sits crooked. But I really liked this one before it had broke. It was really good. It was one of my first ones that I had built where I actually tried weathering and paint chipping. And you can see the canopy. That's not the original canopy. That was actually taken from an old BF 109 spare canopy. Moving back here, it's the Airfix Bolton Paul Defiant. Not much to say about this one. It's old. It's bad. One of the guns is snapped. Decal silvered. And oh, the atrocious panel lines right there. Yeah, this is in the early days when I tried to use pencils to add a wash effect. It didn't turn out so well. And look at that, the turret's coming apart. And here, it's the Airfix BF 109G. This is an out-of-the-box kit. You can see how bad the paint job is. I didn't thin the paint on this one, so it didn't get into any of the panel lines. The fuel tank isn't properly put on. Propeller doesn't spin. Tail wheel snapped. And overall, this one's in pretty bad shape. I've rebuilt that one, and you'll see the rebuilt one sooner in the video, or later in the video. Right here, we have this Airfix BF 110. Not much to say about this either. Non-thin paint, silvering decals. Your standard noob scale model. Back here, we have this old Frog P40 in Royal Australian Air Force markings. The back, you can see I tried to paint it white, but as all of you know, white never looks good when it's brushed on, so it just looks atrocious. And those decals have the white rim because they weren't printed on very well. But I have to say, it's a pretty good kit for its age. Back here, I don't even know what this kit is. I think it's another Frog kit. Yes, this is another Frog Hellcat. Now this one was originally a test bed for the camo scheme because as you know, if you saw my unboxing video, I'm going to build a fairy swordfish. And the paint I wanted to see how the camo scheme would look if I didn't thin or change the colors. So I painted this one up as a test. And I'm basically just using this as a reference guide to how I want the fairy swordfish to turn out. Right here is another Bristol Blenheim Airfix again. This one was even worse than the first one. I tried to make it look like the right engine had been shot up, but the rest of the model is just pretty bad. The canopy is terrible, paint job is very uneven, and the decals heavy silvering. Yeah, it's not very good. Moving back, we actually have the Airfix BF 109. Now even though it looks pretty bad, I'm still quite fond of this one because this is the first Airfix plane that I'd ever brush painted. Got this on the Christmas of 2015, I believe. Yeah, it doesn't have a tail wheel. The horizontal stab struts have snapped off. The canopy, I didn't take the flash off the canopy, and that's why it looks so weird. And I used Scotch tape, like not the blue Scotch tape, no, like the clear transparent Scotch tape as masking tape, and didn't thin any paint. And the propeller broke, and there's a bomb underneath, and there's 2 holes. And I used pencils to add gun smoke. But I'm still fond of this one. I quite like this one. Moving behind that, it is the Airfix 1/72 scale Tempest. Now this one, you're probably wondering why it looks so weird. And this was actually another test subject, which I used to see which greens and grays and browns and greens would match up to a correct RAF color. And I also used this to scratch build antenna wires and test metallic colors. And that's why this one looks so weird. Right here is the old Airfix Focke-Wulf 189, I believe. The Eagle Owl in, I believe that is Slovakian colors. I built this such a long time ago, I forgot which markings it was. Paint job isn't very good on this one. This is when I'm first starting out. Yellow doesn't look good. But it looks pretty decent from afar. I might give this one a repaint. Just so I can say that it looks good. And then the final one, the roughly entire bad batch of all these airplanes, is probably the best Spitfire I have ever painted. This one took 5 hard weeks of non-stop work. I was working at least until 1 in the morning trying to get this thing done. It's the old PM model Spitfire floatplane, Mark V. And I do have to say, this one is the pride and joy of my entire collection. I mean, I hand-painted the roundels, and the camo scheme was free-handed. I think it looks great, and I think it's the most accurate-looking Spitfire. I mean, there's no seam lines. I managed to fill in all the seam lines perfectly, and there's so much detail in this kit. I really like this one. This has to be one of my favorites. And so that's all of these aircraft. And here are these aircraft. These are the newer, more up-to-date, and a lot higher quality airplanes that I have, still keeping in the World War II theme. And starting off here, we have the Airfix Spitfire. I have to say, this is probably the best Spitfire in my entire collection. This one, I really got paint chipping done on this one. It has the P-51 pilot, which I think sort of looks like Tom Hardy's character from the movie Dunkirk. And I got the spinning propeller effect done pretty well. And I even took a little artistic liberty in adding the EBB squadron marking codes. And this pilot is just about to become an ace. And I actually entered this one in a local competition, and I got a silver medal for this one. I quite like this one. It's probably one of my favorite aircraft in my entire collection. Right next to that, it's the Airfix Typhoon. Now, originally, this one had bombs in it. That's why you can see the super glue markings, but I had taken those off. It's not the best, but I sort of like it. I gave it a repaint after it was painted in Humbrol 30. I replaced the Humbrol 30 with 163 and gave it a yellow nose. I sort of like this one because it even has the radiator flap that opens. And I think it looks pretty good. In front of that one is one of my favorite aircraft of all time. It's the P-61 Black Widow. This one is painted in the olive drab neutral gray scheme. This is the Airfix, the old Airfix one. And you'll notice that it has the art, the nose art. And its name is Snook Second. For those of you that build a lot of aircraft, you know that that's actually a P-39. But I got those decals from the, what's the company? It is the Kitty Hawk, 1/72nd scale, no, 1/32nd scale, P-39 is the Snook Second. That's where I got the decals from, and I thought it looked really good on the P-61, so I just applied those, and this one even has the rotating turret and elevating guns, and I really like this one. I think it looks pretty good. Back here, it's the Heller Saab J21 that I made. That was my first video ever. Now you note that I changed the decals on this one. I removed the bomb rack and I gave the spinner a repaint. I also gave the entire aircraft a repaint. And now I think it's looking better than ever. I really like that one. It's a really good kit for its age. And I have to say, I think it's the only 1/72nd scale Saab J21 out there. So if you see one, definitely pick it up. And here is the classic Airfix Mossy in the Night Fighter scheme. Now, the decal broke on the side, but that rail right there, that's always impossible to get a decal on. And it's missing a pilot. But I really like this one because I had spray painted it and used this matte varnish, and it got this weird look in it. but I sort of like it. It makes it look like it's flying through cold weather. And I even scratch built that radar mast. So I kind of like this one. I think it looks pretty good. Here is the Airfix Spitfire that you saw the video on of the Argentinian Air Force in the RAF. I didn't get the spinning propeller effect that good on this one, but it's one of my favorites. It's a Mark V, and I'm always a fan of the earlier version Mark Spitfires, and I quite like this one. Behind that is the Tomahawk Mark II that you saw in the unboxing video. I have all the time-lapse footage of this one. As the day that I released this video, I have all the time-lapse, but I haven't released a video because camera issues. But here it is in all of its glory, and I really like this one because of that side roundel. It looks good. Propeller spins, and it's even got that oil streak. I don't know, I might repaint that oil streak though. It doesn't look too good. Behind that is the Bristol Beaufighter that was in last video's update. And here it is completed, all the masking tape removed. I decided not to put on the rockets. It still has the holes for the rockets, but I decided not to put them on because I think it just looks so much better without it. It's got the invasion stripes, propeller spin too, and I think overall it just looks pretty good. I like how this one turned out. Here is the 1/72 scale Airfix Catalina. And this is one of my favorites. It's based after the Catalina is based in the Aleutian Islands. Got the spinning propeller effect. You can see the controlled steering wheels, I guess, that they used in Catalinas. It's got the guns tucked in the bubbles. I actually used those guns from the Airfix B-17 or Fortress Mark III if it was an RAF service. And I really like this one because it even has the retracting floats on the sides that can come down. And beautiful. Behind that is the Airfix Spitfire Mark IX with floats from the PM model. You can see I just had to put in the gear up position and sand those down, and then just attach the floats. I like how this one turned out. It's pretty cool. Even got the tail fin underneath implemented. The yellow didn't go on very well, but I still like this airplane. It's one of my favorites in my collection. It's a Spitfire. How can you not love it? And then right here is the biggest fighter in my collection. It is the Kitty Hawk 1/32 scale P-39. And other than that massive spinning yellow disc on the front of it, I think it looks pretty good. This was the first aircraft that I had done in such a large scale, and I took a lot of time and effort on it, and I really liked how this turned out. Overall, I think it just looks pretty good for when I built it and my experience level when I built it. And this was also the first time I'd used Tamiya spray paint on an aircraft, and I think it turned out pretty well. Behind that is the Airfix P-51 and RAF service. Those are fictional squadron codes, but it does have the rockets underneath, and I quite like those rockets. I think it adds a nice touch to a P-51. And then, almost finally, we have the B-25 old Airfix one. Not much to say about this one. The decals sort of silvered and yellowed, and this one broke. But my dad really likes B-25s, and this is the first B-25 that I ever built, and I think it looks pretty good. And finally, over here, we have the Tamiya 1/48 scale Corsair. This was a gift from a friend of ours. Very generous to give a Tamiya plane, a Tamiya kit. I really liked how this one turned out. I also used Tamiya spray on this one, and I think the pilot looks pretty good. But, ooh, yes, the white underneath, it was uneven. So I mostly keep it displayed at an angle where people can't see the uneven camouflage. But I like how that one turned out. Here is the B-17, or Fortress Mark III, in RAF service. This is the same aircraft from the video I made a couple months ago. Not much to say about that. There will be a link right here to that video. And finally, we have the Airfix Bf-109G. And this is the same Swiss Air Force Bf-109G that I had previously shown. It's just, I decided to redo the kit, and I think it turned out pretty well. And here is my jet collection. Starting here, we have the Revell 148 scale F-106 Delta Dart. This one has been painted up in the research scheme or prototype scheme, and the decals are from the 148 scale Tamiya Corsair, and I just painted on those red stripes. Fictional serial codes, and as you can see, the tip is even broken off because I've dropped this thing. But it has a cool Bombay. I sort of like the missiles in there. They look pretty cool, look deadly. But this was actually the second kit I've ever built. This one I originally built with my dad, and it was unpainted, not even decaled. It was just there sitting in my room. It was when I first started out building scale models. But a couple years later, only a couple months ago actually, I decided to repaint this and give it a scheme, and I think it looks pretty good in this orange metallic scheme. Here we have the Airfix F86, which you saw in the first update video that I released in February. Here it is all completed. I've removed the pilot, and that pilot is now sitting happily in the cockpit of the A6 right there. This is painted in the Vietnam scheme, Vietnam War Air scheme. I sort of like this. I think it's pretty good for what it is. Did some tests, did some painting trick tests with this one, so I might even strip the paint off of that one later in the year and use it as a test bed. Moving back here, it's one of my favorite aircraft of all time, the de Havilland Vampire. They're just so cool. I mean, the twin boom design and that bubble canopy, it's just such a cool aircraft. Oh, whew, very cool. And then well, this is the Revell one, 1/72 scale, and this has been repainted since the last time you saw it in my channel trailer. But yeah, that's that one. Moving back, it's the Academy F-16, and blimey, that's a lot of weapons. When I first built this one, I was so mad at it. I really didn't like this one because the decals had silvered, and there were glue spots everywhere, and the wings were at the weird angles, and the glue had caused the canopy to fog up, and the cockpit was terrible, and there were fit issues everywhere. So I decided to have a little fun with it, and every single spare weapon that I have that I didn't put on any other aircraft, I just painted, or didn't even paint, and I just glued onto this aircraft. I think it looks pretty silly, so I quite like that one. In front of that one is the Italeri A6E, and I really like this one. I was quite surprised with the quality level, because a lot of times Italeri gets a lot of bad rep for how their kits fit and how they're made, and there are some fit issues with this kit, but overall I think it turned out pretty good. The kit itself was a lot of fun to build. I didn't even follow the instructions as I started to complete it. It's one of those kits where it's designed in such a way where you can really take your own route of how you want to create it, and I really like the decals on this kit as well. I think they were so perfect. They were perfect. They were nice and thin, and they worked amazing with Microsol. And as you can see in the cockpit, I have two pilots in there ready to blow up some enemies. Right here actually is the first scale model I've ever built, and I can't even say that I've built this one. It was really my dad that had built this for me. I think This was made in 2012, or maybe even 2010, but this is the Academy A10. The canopy's pretty bad, and originally this was an unpainted kit. It just had decals on it, but I gave this a repaint, slapped on some decals that I don't even know which country that belongs to, but I thought it looked cool, and I gave this one a new life. Now this one is currently probably one of my favorite aircraft in my entire collection, and I think it's one of my favorite aircraft in general. It's the F-15 Eagle. This is a Revell kit, 1/48 scale. And I had originally built this kit a couple years ago, around the same time as the Delta Dart, but it was terrible, and it looked like crap. So, roughly a couple months ago, I think summer of 2017, I decided to rebuild the kit, and here it is. And I have to say, I'm really pleased with how this one turned out. I tried new weathering techniques with this one, and the weathering turned out pretty good. And I do like the missiles on this one. And I think, at the state it looks right now, it looks like a true F-15. And then, finally, we have the two F-35s. Now, this is the Hasegawa F-35 in 1/72 scale. It's just painted up. I painted on all those markings, and they're free-handed, based off of reference pictures. That's why they looked all mismatched and all funky. And it's supposed to be the Canadian Air Force, but a lot of the decals broke. The Canadian flag broke when I tried to put it on the vertical stabilizer, so that's why they don't exist. And I removed the pilot to put in the A6E. And then behind that is the Kitty Hawk 1/48 scale F-35. And this one doesn't have a pilot either. But I'd gotten this for my birthday once, I think in 2016. And I almost completed it, but I had trouble with the intakes. And it had just sat in my room for an entire year when I finally finished it in late 2017. And now it's been like this. So that's my entire jet collection. Here is my either incomplete or work in progress aircraft. This is sort of a mixed match genre of all aircraft. As throwing on the left, we have this Revell SR-71. And now, originally, I completed this with the landing gear down, and the cockpit had been displayed open. I entered this in a contest, the same contest as I'd entered in the other Spitfire previously shown, and I got a silver medal for that one as well. But after that, I thought it didn't look very good with the gear down, and the box art displays it in such a cool way as it's like soaring through the sky. So I took off all the gear, all the landing gear, and decided to put this in a gear up fashion. And I'm currently still in the process of doing so. It's not my main priority. Next to that, it's the Revell 48 scale F-18E. And this kit sucks. No, whenever you see this kit and you're tempted to buy it, don't buy it. It's such a bad kit. I got this at a local craft store for only around $10 because I had a 50% off coupon. And even at $10, this is probably the worst kit I've ever tried to put together. It's accurate in shapes, but the fit is atrocious. And I was originally going to do this in a Canadian Air Force scheme, but I might just abandon this altogether one day, because it's terrible. Whatever you do, don't buy this kit. It's a big mistake on my part. Here we have an old Airfix Brewster Buffalo. Why I have 3 Brewster Buffaloes in my collection, I have no idea. I don't even like the aircraft, but right now I'm currently using this as a test bed for masking and hand painting roundels and different camo schemes. Over here we have the Trumpeteer 1/144th scale YF-23. This one is also in work in progress. I'm trying to repaint it, might resand it down, and do a little work on that. It's not a good kit. It doesn't even have the right decals. Yeah, I don't know about that one. here it's another Airfix Catalina, and this one is painted in a lighter blue scheme. I'm currently in the process of painting over the current decals. Just wait for that truck to go by. And put on some early pre-war version decals on that one. Here is the Spitfire Mark 19 by Airfix 1/72 scale. And this is the one you saw in the update video. I'm still working on this one. It has a lopsided propeller spinner, and I'm not quite happy about that. I don't know how I'm going to fix that, but I'm trying to finish this soon. This is my main priority. I hope to get that one completed in at least a couple weeks. Back here, it's an old Heller Orado 196, I believe. Yes. And this is the the classic German reconnaissance floatplane. I've run out of the light blue, so I'm gonna have to go purchase some more light blue and paint over all those areas. And I also ran out of the wrong color, or the right color of green, so I'm gonna have to pick up some more green to finish that one too. And finally, we have this Airfix Lancaster that's currently in the process of receiving some spare parts, and I'm just gonna wait for that truck to go by so I can finally complete this one. It's been sitting under my desk for about 3 weeks now, and I just want to get this one completed. And finally, we have reached the last section of this video. This isn't aircraft that I've completed, but this is aircraft that I hope to complete sooner or later that are still in the box. And some of these kits you recognize from my unboxing video, but there should be two, note, this one and this one, that I did not show in the unboxing video. That's because I had purchased these at a scale modeling competition in January. And the first one that I had purchased was this Catalina Mark II. So this was the early versions of the Catalina, the Mark V's that didn't have the wheels, the landing gear. And this is the old Revell kit. It's sort of old, but it looks to be a better kit than the Airfix one. So I'm sort of excited to build that one. I'm going to build it in the RAF scheme. Below that is the Fairy Swordfish, the newer one that Airfix has released. I will be doing the B scheme. It looks to be a very cool scheme, and I can't wait to do this one, although I'm not very good at biplanes. Right next to that is another Bulletin Paul Defiant. Now, you may ask, why am I building another one if I already have one in my collection? And that's because the one I already have stocks. So I'm going to be rebuilding this one. It's still a really good kit. I remember, even as a beginner, I first built that kit. It was still a lot of fun to build, and it looks really nice. So I'm going to be doing this one pretty soon. Above that is the new BF-110 scheme. I'll be doing this one. I might be putting this one in a diorama with another aircraft, possibly my Spitfire that I've already shown. And in natural British fashion, the Spitfire will be shooting down the BF-110. And I might do it in either of these schemes. I have yet to choose between the two. They look pretty cool. Right here we have the Royal Aircraft Factory BE-2C. I will be doing the A scheme, and I'm excited to build this one too. It's the 100th birthday of the RAF, when it was first formed in 1918, and so I will be completing this one pretty soon. It's sort of a birthday tribute to the RAF. So I'm quite excited to build this one. Another one is the Wildcat. I'm really excited to build the Wildcat. Again, I'm rebuilding this one because the current one that I have sucks. And I have some other American decals that I will be building this kit with. Above that is the new Airfix Stuka. And this one, I'm really tempted to build the B scheme and the captured RAF camouflage. It looks pretty nice. I have the decal sheet right here. Has these nice RAF roundels and fin flashes. But at the same time, the A scheme with the giant snake on the side looks really cool. So I might do a little historical research and just see the history behind each aircraft. And whichever ones I like more, I guess I'll just build that one. And then finally, we have this 1/144th scale EA18G Growler. And the whole reason I got this kit, and it caught my attention, was we have a family friend who lives up in Washington, and he lives right by a growler base, and so he sees a lot of these fly out of whatever base there is there, and so I wanted to build this one because I've only built one 1/144th scale aircraft before, and that's the Trumpeteer YF-23, and that was a terrible kit. So I want to get a really small aircraft that's really cool into the collection, and this seems to be a pretty new kit, and it seems to be a pretty good kit. So I'm gonna be excited to build that one. So, this has been a long video. It's my longest. I hope you're not as exhausted as I am. And I know it sounds crazy that someone like me is tired of talking, but that is my entire collection of scale models and unbuilt scale models. And I hope to see you in the next video. Now where do I put them all?